What's up, challengers? Zach here. We got a GLC deck profile for you guys. This GLC deck profile is featuring my water deck, and it's the water deck I'm kind of calling the Hydro Whale deck. I can't really call it a Hydro Pump deck since I'm only playing two different attackers that use Hydro Pump, but I'm mostly choosing the name based on this Wailord, who's kind of the boss of the deck. And so to kick the deck profile off, we'll start with the Wailord line. So the first card, the boss card, I'll introduce before the basic, is Wailord. And so this is a beast of a monster with 240 HP, and it's got the Hydro Pump attack for 4 colorless. This attack does 10 plus 50 for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So he can get up there pretty quickly, and stuff with like the reversal energy will quickly get you to like the 160 with just the reversal energy. Well, you'll have to have the one more energy, but it allows it to make him a very quick attacker, but his best value comes from his HP. Going backwards a little bit, we have the Hydro Pump Wailord, which is for 3 colorless. This attack does 20 more damage for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So fits the theme a little bit. I'll have to think about if there are better Wailmers out there in general, but I kind of like the idea of him being an attacker by himself if I was in a pinch. But the real value comes from Wailord at 240 HP. One consideration is that in previous matches that I've done with my water decks, I've gone between the Hydro Pump Wailord with the 24 HP, 240 HP, and then the special Water Whales Wailord, who's got 200 HP, but he takes 30 less damage from attacks. And I think I'm trending to using this Wailord just for its raw HP value. For some reason, I've been hexed and then it's been knocked out, but 240 is just, to me, feels like such an unreachable one-shot number that I have way more comfort with sitting behind the wall that is this Wailord. The next card of the deck is Lapras. Lapras is a very, very solid basic Pokemon. It's, I think, my only basic attacker besides potentially the Wailmer in this deck, and I included it in the deck because I was missing a basic attacker option. There were times where I wasn't able to set up right away, and so I was kind of wanting to have a pretty viable basic Pokemon attacker, and so Lapras has the Confuse Ray, which is kind of your YOLO stall. I'm really hurting here. Hopefully you flip tails, get confused, but it's your opponent's active Pokemon is confused, so it's pretty nice. And it's also got 130 HP, very solid for a basic Pokemon, and it has Hydro Pump. And this attack does 10 plus 30 times the number of water energies attached to this. So this Pokemon can one-shot very big tanks. Let's see, I played 7 water energies in this version of the deck, so it would do 220. So with the Muscle Band, it could potentially kill an enemy Wailord, but that's going all in with the whole entire deck. So, but still being a very respectable attacker. The next attacker I choose to use in this type of deck is the Palafin and Finizen line. There is an argument to be made to choose a different Finizen. There's a 70 HP Finizen that might be better in spread matchups, especially you want to make sure you have the little extra HP, being a 70 HP Pokemon. But I like this Finizen because of its Valiant Evolution. And this attack reads, switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon to evolve it. Then shuffle your deck. So it's a very cheap or cheeky, or it's a very easy way of getting into Palafin to have an attacker set up for the next turn, especially if your start's a little slow. I'll kind of explain it later, but there are more ideal starts than Finizen, so that's the reason why I'm kind of trending towards a 70 HP version of Finizen instead. And then Palafin, another very strong water-type Pokemon. He's got the first attack, Jet Punch. This attack also does 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon, and does 30 to the active. And then Justice Kick, which is the really cool attack. For 2 water energies, he's at 210 damage. If this Pokemon didn't move from the bench to the active spot this turn, this attack does nothing. So you can't promote him and then after your active Pokemon's knocked out, you have to promote a different Pokemon, switch that Pokemon to get the Palafin to do his 210 attack. And I like playing this Palafin, just because the 210, I like being able to clear almost everything except an enemy Wailord out from the active spot. And that's the main reason. And it's a 2 energy low to the ground, in my opinion. Like 2 energy attackers like this for 210 are super low to the ground, so it's a lot easier to get your attackers going without the need of like a Rain Dance Pokemon. next Pokemon we play, staying with the theme of low to the ground, we play the Misty Staryu and Starmie. So the Staryu, you have to play the Staryu, but it's actually not too bad. 70 HP being a perfect Buddy Poffin target. Bubble Beam, flip a coin for Paralyze, but the Misty Starmie is a great attacker for water. So at 100 HP is okay, but its attack is Abrupt Flash for 60. If this Pokemon evolved from Misty Staryu during this turn, this attack does 80 more damage. So it's 140 damage for 1 energy. That's very hard to beat. That's really good. And with water, you'll play things like Scoop Up Net or I forget the name of the specific energy, but the energy that bounces your Pokemon back to your hand when it is knocked out. So you get to recur like the Misty Starmie attack again very easily. Or you Super Rod this line back. It's very low to the ground, 1 energy to be a very lethal attack for most cards. You attach a Muscle Band, all of a sudden you have a 161 energy attacker for a turn. That's crazy. The next card we'll talk about is the Inteleon line. Inteleon is like the lifeblood of water. This is, I think, what makes water one of the more consistent types. And so it starts with Sobble with 70 HP. That's basically the highest HP you can search for with Buddy Poffin. Drizzile, it's the Shady Dealings that makes the Inteleon line really good. The Shady Dealings is, on this Drizzile at least, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may search your deck for a trainer card. Trainer card, so item, tool, support, or trainer card. Put it into your hand. And so a lot of the times, a lot of people on the Drizzile evolution turn, they'll search for the Irida to kind of set up your board, maybe pick up the Inteleon as your water Pokemon to set up for the next turn. You're good. You're like, you can do any card you want to set up. Classically, it's probably going to be Irida to get. And there are other options you can pick for setting up, like Evolution Incense or Buddy Poffin. If you didn't get your board set up on the first turn, it's the very solid ability. And then the Inteleon line is you get to pick 2 trainer cards when you evolve into it, so it's like doubly more busted. And it's got a solid attack with Aqua Bullet. It does 120 damage for a water and a colorless. This attack also does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and I actually think this is very nice too, especially if Pokemon's power levels the HP levels start creeping up a bit. So like a Starmie's attack into a Palafin would knock it out, but if you get to like Escape Rope into the Inteleon later, the Palafin the enemy Palafin would go to the bench. You can snipe it with the extra 20 damage, or get like a Wailord in range, so eventually the Palafin can try and knock it out with its attack. So the Aqua Bullet's actually very strong. Then we have more of our support Pokemon. This is a classic water support line is the Remoraid with 70 HP. That's why you pick it. But Octillery with Abyssal Hand, 90 HP, lovable target, very nice. But Abyssal Hand is once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 cards in your hand. So it's your Bibarel that has 90 HP and easily searchable with a lot of the different cards in your deck. So it's a very, very, very solid draw support line. Similar line of thought, I play this Snom that has 1 retreat. There's a Call for Family Snom, but it has 2 retreat, and I think it only has 40 HP. Zach that's editing this video will probably figure that out or show that card right here. Then we have the Frostmoth, which is your Rain Dance card. So this is the card that kind of helps make sure that your Wailord gets online or your Hydro Pumpers are more active. But ideally, you only need the Frostmoth for like a turn or 2 to make sure you get your Wailord online, because the Wailord is going to buy you multiple turns. And so this is a less optimal, well, I'd say it's the most optimal choice just because of how easy and low to the ground this is. It's only a stage 1 that can attach energies to the bench and to give clarity against the other Rain Dancers. This Ice Dance says, as often as you like, during your turn, you may attach a water energy card from your hand to one of your benched water Pokemon. So that's a very key difference, is that the stage 2 versions that attach waters from your hand, they can go to the active Pokemon as well, but Frostmoth is restricted to only doing it to bench Pokemon, which can be fine with this deck, because as we go through some of the trainer cards, there's a lot of switching options that allow you to get to your card like a Wailord or a Palafin back to the bench so you can support them with Rain Dance, or just get the Palafin attacking once again. The next card we'll talk about is Alolan Vulpix. Alolan Vulpix is cool, mostly because if you send out a lot of your other basic Pokemons, then you somehow draw into the Alolan Vulpix. On your first turn, you can retreat and then attack for free with Beacon. Beacon is search your deck for up to 2 Pokemon, reveal them, and put them into your hand. So a lot of times, you'll try and set up your Sobble right away, and then you'll get into the Vulpix to search for the Drizzile and some other Pokemon you're thinking about setting up with later. So very, very solid card. I use this over the Basculegion just because I like being able to search out the Drizzile. That's, I think, probably the only reason why I'm using this instead of the Basculin. And then the last Pokemon we play is Manaphy is Bench Barrier. If you don't respect bench like spread decks, then they definitely disrespect you. So that's why I play Manaphy in this deck. Now we'll talk about our support cards. So first we'll talk about Irida, since Irida is your ideal target for searching with Shady Dealings when you evolve into Drizzile. And so search your deck for a water Pokemon and an item card. Reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. So this will be search for Inteleon, more than likely, unless you have another out to it, or setup cards. So like if you already have like a pretty decent setup because of your turn one, you can probably go into your Rain Dance. More optimally, I'd probably go over Octillery if he isn't prized right away, just to get the draw engine going right away. But it's a very solid setup card that lets you fetch out anything you really want from the deck. Next is Raihan, a classic support card for making sure that your low to the ground energy attackers are active. And so Raihan is, you can only play it if one of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's turn. Attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon, then search your deck for any card. And so a lot of times this could just be how you get Wailord going right from the get-go, you know. So like let's say you have your Pokemon, your Alolan Vulpix was knocked out, and you got the Wailmer on the bench, right? You set up the Wailmer, you attach the one water with Raihan, and then you search your deck for a reversal energy. That's 4 energies since you're down on prizes, presumably. That's like an instant Hydro Pump attack for like 210. And there's almost nothing they can do about it. The downside of that strategy, however, is that once you're even on prizes, reversal energy becomes a colorless energy, and so you'll have to figure out how to attach 2 more water energies from there, but it's still an option. You know, it's like that's like kind of the whole idea is that Raihan will activate almost all of your attackers, like Palafin included. If you know, same scenario, Alolan Vulpix was knocked out, well now you push up a different basic Pokemon, then you retreat into Palafin, you Raihan, attach an energy from your hand, swing for 210. That's it. The low to the ground attackers are so nice for water, and it's crazy that they have so many different, very solid attackers. Next, we have our 2 disruption cards. I play Marnie and Iono for hand disruption. Marnie being the shuffle your hand, put it on the bottom of your deck, draw 5, your opponent draws 4, and then Iono is shuffle your hand, put it on the bottom of the deck, draw equal to prizes. So the idea behind this is to kind of cycle through the deck with Octillery, and so the idea is you put your hand on the bottom, draw 5, play a card or 2, draw more cards, so you're not seeing the cards that you just put to the bottom of the deck with Marnie. And same thing with Iono. So for late game with Octillery, you got a bunch of dead cards that you don't want to, but you know there's like a boss effect card that you can still search for through the deck or try and get closer to for later. You'll just put your hand on the bottom of the deck, draw the 1 or 2, and then Octillery to draw some more cards. Next are some of our support cards. So I play Nessa. Nessa is very helpful card for this deck since we are only playing a handful of attackers, so it's nice to at least like recur the Starmie or the Wailord again, and it's also just very good for making sure you have energies again, since we are technically a Hydro Pump deck. Having another option to pick up energies from the discard pile is always very useful. Avery is another form of disruption that I appreciate a lot. It's draw 3 cards if you drew any cards. This way your opponent discards their bench until they have 3 Pokemon. So when you're playing GLC, a lot of the times they play usually they play 2 support Pokemon, so they go a little aggro with setting up an extra support Pokemon or a couple extra attackers. It's actually a very significant amount of disruption, so like they'll have to waste some of the recovery cards like Nessa or Tulip or Clara or Lana Zade early to make sure they have attackers viable in the game, so that kind of saves you a little bit of forces your opponent to spend some of their resources early. Next is our tag team cards. I play Malo and Lana because the whole vibe, like I introduced earlier, was like you get the Raihan revenge plays, you get the Palafin attack off. The Palafin can attack. It's 210 attack, does no damage unless he switches. So like Malo and Lana is a supporter that'll switch your Pokemon, and when you play this card, you may discard 2 other cards from your hand to heal 120 damage. So this can be used normally just as a switch card or to heal your Wailord, because realistically there's no way they're attacking Wailord and killing it in one shot, and so you can use the Maulana to kind of maybe make the Wailord turn last even longer. So instead of taking 2 turns to kill, it might take 3 turns to kill. And so the idea is the synergy with Wailord and Palafin to get them to the bench to potentially use the Icy Dance from the Frostmoth to get energies onto it again, and then attack again. So that's the whole idea behind the Maul and Lana instead of something like a Cynthia and Caitlyn. And I play Guzma. I play 2 special energies in the deck. One is kind of a hint, is the reversal energy. I think the other one's called Splash, which returns the Pokemon to your hand when it's knocked out, which is very nice. But it's also just a solid setup card to allow you to get one of your switch tools. And it starts off with getting a Stadium. Then you can discard 2 cards from your hand when you play it to search your deck for a special energy and a tool card. And so the tool card being just making sure you have extra damage or have switch effect options. And the Stadium being a heal Stadium, I play Rough Seas, and I also play Bucket Hill, which is your Artisan for water and fighting Pokemon. Then we have our boss effect cards, Boss's Order and Guzma. Guzma is just nice because it's also a switch effect card for things like Palafin, and making sure you can get your Pokemon to the bench again for the Ice Dance thing again. And I've been playing Lusamine in this deck. I played Lusamine primarily to get my Stadiums back, just because I respect spread a lot in this version of the deck, and so being able to get 2 uses off of Rough Seas is something, maybe it's more playstyle, more preference. That's just something I like to be able to do, so I can play Rough Seas aggressively, get the 30 heal off early on a couple of Pokemon, and then they'll bounce, and I can pick it up again with Lusamine. And now we talk about our item cards. So our item cards will start off with the Pokemon search cards. We play Nest Ball for a classic, search your deck for a basic, put it on your bench. Buddy Poppin, almost, so everything except for the Wailmer, the Lapras, I think were 70 HP or less. And so this card lets you set up very easily. Like pick out any card you like, basic Pokemon you want for setup, so a very good card. Heavy Ball, making sure that we can fetch the easy pieces out from the prize cards. Dive Ball being a super versatile Pokemon search card, so this is search your deck for any water Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hands, shuffle your deck. So this and Level Ball being the search your deck for a Pokemon with 90 HP or less card. These 2 cards themselves being kind of like the easiest ways to get into your Drizzile from the get-go. You set up your Sobble, and then your opponent's like you have the Drizzile in your hand, or it gets Iono'd, but you have a lot of different options to search out evolution Pokemon. Evo Soda is not a card that you want to use on Drizzile, though, since Drizzile requires you to play it from the hand to get the ability off. This is a very solid card for getting into almost any of your other evolution forms, so it's a very good card to search on your follow-up turn with Inteleon, for example, to make sure you have your Rain Dance, your Wailord, your Palafin set up as primary go-to attackers. Another note is that I think Misty's Starmie also requires you to play it from hand, but I think maybe it's only evolution, so I'll show the card to make sure that we get it right. And then Evolution Incense, Level Ball, Dive Ball being all very solid forms of Pokemon search to make sure you're kind of getting your shady dealings off. And this being search for an evolution Pokemon only. This is search your deck for an evolution Pokemon, put it in there so it misses out on being able to play it from hand. That's why I was making those points earlier. VS Seeker, Verse Seeker, put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. This allows you to get reuse on Nessa. I think it's probably a Nessa or Guzma's kind of probably your the more likely candidates. If you get a VS Seeker early, being able to play your Irida again, because let's say you would shady dealings and you still need to set up your Pokemon, you just play the Versus Seeker for Irida instead, so you get 2 Iridas back to back. Palpad to shuffle back in your supporters for later. I play a lot of item cards in general just to make sure that I get decent value out of Octillery, so I have a lot of item cards and a lot of discard cards and supporters and like Lost Seeker and stuff, just to Lost Vacuum, just so I can try and like play out the hand to draw more cards if I feel inclined to. This just being a very good way to get boss effects. And Nessa's back, I think, are the more important pieces for Hydro Pumping stuff. I play the copy of Super Rod as an item-based form of being able to do like a supporter-based effect. Like Nessa, just make sure I get like an early Starmie back into the deck so I can get another 140 attack off with it later in the game. Or if I've gone through energies very quickly, I can at least shuffle them back so I can get an extra use of some energy search later. I do play a copy of energy retrieval in this deck. I find it useful just to get the 1 or 2 energy back to make those low to the ground attackers viable again. Right now, I think preference, but I think I'm still trending towards keeping energy retrieval. Capacious Bucket and Professor's Letter are for the sake of this deck. Just search your deck for 2. Search your deck for 2 energies in Professor's Letter. Search your deck for up to 2 water energies with Capacious Bucket. We play 7 water energies total, so it's just always nice being able to search all the energy cards you need from the deck. These are also just good targets for shady dealings if you're already sufficiently set up and you just need the energy to get your attackers live. We play Tag Call as a form to just search out Guzma Hala and Malalana. It's just kind of like in my mind, it's almost like a thinning card. We play 2 different cards for switching effects. So we play Escape Rope, which is, like I've said in other videos, like a pseudo boss effect. It switches your opponent's active with one of their bench, and you do the same. So it lets you get Palafin off again once again, or get a Pokemon like Wailord to the bench to attach energies to it with Icy Dance. Switch Raft is a newer addition to the deck that I do appreciate. This is switch your active water Pokemon with one of your benched Pokemon. If you do, heal 30 damage from the Pokemon you moved. In GLC, healing that 30 is actually relevant on things like Wailord or things that have like more than 140 HP, especially like your Inteleon or Palafin. And so being able to make sure that those guys are topped off is actually super useful. So a card that's different from most decks is that I'm playing a copy of Lost Vacuum in place of Field Blower. Right now I'm kind of like my head's at in this place where people play U-turn board, and being able to deny that U-turn board is actually a little bit more useful in my mind than just sniping 2 random cards off the field. I would probably be more inclined to play Field Blower again if I myself was playing a U-turn board, just so I can change the target that the U-turn board is on. But right now, just being able to Lost Vacuum away my opponent's U-turn board, I think is a lot more disruptive than just Field Blowing it just to put their tools back in their hand or something. Because a lot of times you can use your stadiums to counter stadium. I play the Lucamine to pick up the stadiums to counter stadium. So there's like a whole dynamic there where I think Lost Vacuum is way more useful. We play a copy of Aqua Patch, so like Dark Patch, to attach a water energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched water Pokemon. So this is the way to get Palafin up and going in one turn. With the reversal energy strategy with Wailord, it's an easy way to get him active in one turn without the Raihan. So it's Aqua Patch for reversal energy. Wailord's good to go. Then we play Scoop Up Net. You can kind of treat it like a switch effect in a pinch, but this is more ideally in the deck to pick up maybe your Shady Youngs or your Misty's Starmie again. So, you attack with Starmie, they do nothing, or they poke it. You just pick up the Starmie again with Scoop Up Net, play the Staryu, and you're going to have your a 140 attacker ready to go the next turn. And to round out the deck profile, we talk about our stadiums, our tools, and our energy cards. So the first cards we'll talk about are our stadium cards. So I play Rough Seas is one of the 2 stadium cards I play. Rough Seas is once during each player's turn, that player may heal 30 damage from each of his or her water Pokemon and lightning Pokemon. So I use this as the kind of respect spread. An early spread without a Manaphy on the board, or they do some chip damage into Wailord. You can see that they're setting up for a successful attack on the next turn to try and potentially knock out a Wailord. You heal it by 30 and all of a sudden it's out of range. Brooklet Hill is probably more ideally the stadium card you try and go to right away with like a good Guzma Hala or something, or I don't know, I guess worst case scenario, I guess you could do Shady Dealings if you're supporters, if you already have the Irida in your hand or something. But you search for Brooklet Hill, or you use Brooklet Hill to kind of set up whatever line you want. So like let's say you start with a 1 energy retreater in the active, you search for Vulpix, right? And so like you attach energy to active, retreat into Vulpix, search for Drizzile, whatever you need to set up to get the turn going some more. And then for tool cards, we play 3 tools. 2 of the tools are switch effect cards, so big surprise here. I play a couple like Guzma and Malalana to help you switch effect. I play the Switch Raft, the Escape Rope, and the Scoop Up Net to try and get switch effects, and we also round the switch effects off with tools. So more classically, the tools will end up going on your support Pokemon like Octillery or Frostmoth. I've also put these tools on something like Palafin just to make sure that he can retreat himself into like a Wailord or some other big Pokemon I'm getting ready to set up, and then he's a threat saved for later if they don't knock him out. And then Muscle Band just to make sure that we can kind of get the little bit of an extension with Inteleon, making the 120 Aqua Bullet attack on Inteleon hit 140, or making the Misty Starmie attack go from 140 to 160, which happen to be Inteleon numbers, by the way. Which 160 is a very useful number, a more useful number to hit now, but 140 is a very good number to hit some of your very aggressive things like Iron Boulder and stuff. Now, when we play 7 energies, in previous versions of this deck, I was using 6 water energies and recycle energy. But that was more for special water whales. I'm not sure if I'm going to miss the recycle energy as a pseudo retreat or pivot type card, but I do like having the extra energy to make sure I have viable search targets with the bucket and stuff. I think reversal energy will probably always stay a mainstay in this deck. I'm only playing 1 basic attacker, so there's not really a reason for me to play counter energy over reversal energy. And for reasons like I described earlier, reversal energy for like the counter KO with the Raihan it's so clutch. It's gonna be like the easiest thing to kind of get off right from the get-go. And if I have a switch effect set up for the turn after to make sure I get back into the whale, it's like the scenario would be I get the Raihan, search for the reversal, so it's going to be the reversal and water energy on your Wailord. You attack, you attack for the 210 that turn. Now you're even on prizes. They hit you with the chump damage. You Malolana, heal the 120, send up a Pokemon with like Air Balloon, for example. It could be the Frostmoth. You attach an extra 2 water energies. If that's a reasonable thing you can do after getting your Frostmoth set up, all of a sudden you have a healed Wailord, and you've gotten the extra energies off, so you can retreat the Frostmoth into the now healed and suited up Wailord to swing for 160, because this will count as a colorless energy in that scenario, but 160 is still a very solid number to swing for with Wailord. And the last energy card we have is Splash Energy. Hinted at this card a couple times with Splash Energy is this card can only be attached to a water Pokemon. This card provides water energy only while this card is attached to a water Pokemon. If the water Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out from damage from an opponent's attack, put that Pokemon into your hand. Discard all cards attached to it. So let's say you attach this card to Misty Starmie. Misty Starmie goes up, does its 140 attack. Next turn it gets knocked out. Misty Staryu and Starmie get put to your hand. This gets sent to the discard pile, but then next turn you can play your Staryu and have another viable attacker again. This is also a nice attach early to your Wailmers, so if you're afraid your opponent's going to kind of hunt after your Wailmer, you can attach this card to your Wailmer so that they're bossing around your cards, but you're keeping your support Pokemon in play. So it's like that's a reason why you want to play Lapras 2 or another basic attacker to make sure that you have viable options for attacking if your opponent starts sniping your planned attack routes. Okay, so these are the cards that I'm not playing in the deck, right? So this is the discussion to kind of make sure that we kind of hit over some of the viable cards that could be used in this version of the deck that I'm not using. So we've kind of highlighted it before, but Baxcalibur is your Super Cold. This is like your Rain Dance Pokemon that allows you to attach to your active Pokemon as much as you want to during your turn as well. I'm not playing Baxcalibur because I think the stage 2 line is kind of super annoying to set up in a game. There are other targets I'd prefer setting up early, like my Remoraid or the Frostmoth instead of the Frostmoth and the Frigibax. I find that too annoying to set up. I'd rather dedicate this Pokemon line to an attacker and maybe support cards like Super Rod and Energy Retrieval just to make sure I have the actual resources to use during the course of the game. The deck also isn't all in on the Hydro Pump strategy. So with cards like Palafin and Misty Starmie, they are low to the ground attackers that I can use or successfully get off with just a hand attach or a hand attach plus an Aqua Patch. The cards in Wailord, the Hydro Pump Wailord, like I mentioned, it's also just a Raihan away from being an active attacker for that turn. So if I feel the need to do so, I can just, get the chump attacks off with Wailord, maybe next turn switch the Wailord out, go into the Misty Starmie, and get the game going that way. This is the Wailord we talked about at the beginning with the what I call the special whales Wailord. This is jumbo size. It takes 30 less damage, so it effectively has 230 HP. But on a hex attack or something, it's a more vulnerable 200 HP, but it does 240 attack. And another really annoying reason why I like playing the Hydro Pump Wailord instead of this Wailord is that Mimikyu one-shots this Wailord. Like the Mimikyu that copies your attack, because they can do Psychic Energy, Recycle Energy, Copy Special Wave, 240 to Wailord. Guess what happens when you're facing a Hydro Pump Wailord? It does like a pitiful 10 damage attack if you copy that Wailord. So that's like another reason to play the Hydro Pump Wailord over the Special Wailord. The next card that you might see in typical Hydro Pump type decks is Kyogre. I actually don't really like this card because I don't like the idea of putting 3 energies into my hand. I get Iono'd and I get into no way of like searching my deck for them. They knock this Pokemon out anyway, and they Iono me, so they don't even have to boss effect anything around. They only have to hand disrupt me to make me slow down by a lot. And I'd rather see the energies get sent to the discard pile, so I can use cards like Energy Retrieval or Nessa to get my attacker to get the energies to attack again. I am not saying that the 180 snipe on this Dynamic Wave is anything to scoff at, but I just don't like this card. Another card is Veluza. Veluza is a 3 energy Hydro Pumper. Has the ability to put 2 energies to your bench if it's knocked out from the active spot. It's actually not a bad attacker, but I prefer the Lapras right now just because the Lapras can be like a slow build-up type attacker. So like turn 1 you attack for 40, turn 2 you attack for 70, that's 110. You're more than likely getting most basics out of the way on your turn 2. This Veluza thing is nice, but I'm preferring the Lapras right now also because of the confusion. Next, we talked about this Basculin earlier instead of the Alolan Vulpix. So this Basculin is a 0 energy attack to gather the crew to search your deck for 2 basics to put them on your bench. It is a very powerful setup card, so I'm not undervaluing this at all. I just prefer the Vulpix. This is the alternate Palafin to decide to use. It has 150 HP like the other Palafin, but it's got the Vanguard Punch. It does 130 for 1 energy, so that's super solid. The downside, however, is this Pokemon also does 10 damage to itself for each damage counter on it. So if they get the bit of chip damage in, he starts becoming a slower and slower attacker. But he is a 1 energy attacker, so there's a lot of things to consider with trying to use this Palafin over the other Palafin. If I find it too hard to switch effect, but I haven't so far, and I'm more comfortable with the idea of being able to knock out everything except a Wailord right now. Fion is another solid card. So Fion is a once during your turn before you attack this Pokemon is on your bench. You may have your opponent switch their active with one of their bench Pokemon. If you do, discard all cards attached to this Pokemon and put it on the bottom of your deck. So this is something you can constantly search out with Brook-a-Hill or other basic energy search to constantly make your opponent give you a benched Pokemon for attacking. So like if you think that, let's say they gave you the Kyogre to attack with, you switch it to the bench, you snipe something else, it's going to be a lot harder for them to set up again if you decide to do the Ino or something too. Then lastly, we're going to talk about a card, Wishy-Washy. Wishy-Washy is a 180 HP attacker, so this would fit with the comfortability of having a solid basic Pokemon. At the end of your opponent's turn, if this Pokemon has any damage counters on it, flip a coin. If tails, this Pokemon, shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. I hate that effect. I like the 180 HP. I like the fact, I'm okay with the fact that it's 130 for 3 energy, but I hate the fact that all this effort into setting it up can be it's easily gone, and you could be left with a horrible board state that was kind of baking on flipping tails, and you're kind of screwed. So I'd rather go for like a stall effect with a confusion or something instead, and so that's the main reason why I dislike the Kyogre and Wishy-Washy. I understand why people play it, because the 180 HP wall, that if you are set up and this gets shuffled back to the deck, you're basically denying prizes by it being with its effect too. I just don't like the idea of being able to mess up on the Wishy-Washy, and it kind of ruins your board state. And to kind of cycle back to the beginning of the deck profile when we talked about water Pokemon, a lot of the ways that I think about setting up this deck is kind of like the pile up top here with Pokemon are all your basic Pokemon with 1 retreat cost, and so you have these Pokemon with 2 or 3 retreat costs. But the idea is when you open your game with one of these attackers and you have a basic Pokemon search, you have like the Buddy Poff and you have the Brook-a-Hill, you have other cards that allow you to kind of get into more basic Pokemon. The idea is kind of to start with one of your 1 energy pivots, search for the Alolan Vulpix and try and set up from there. So like in an ideal scenario, you'd have, you know, one of your 1 energy retreaters and some other Pokemon ideally getting ready to go. So you'd kind of like start off with like a Remoraid Sobble or something, or like you just have the Sobble, for example. Like worst, like you start off Sobble, you Brookle Hill into Vulpix, retreat, and then you beacon into your Drizzile. And I would probably go for another basic Pokemon to like set up like a Remoraid or something. So like to me, this is your more ideal like setup for starting off in the game. There are a decent amount of Pokemon Surge cards and combination of Ionas and stuff. But to me, these are like the ideal targets for early game searches and setting up. I don't think Snom is as priority of a target for setting up just because you have a lot of low energy attackers. So as long as you keep in mind what your path is going to be, so like you could search for like Staryu, Remoraid, or Snom as like your secondary, but I'd say more primary, secondary, and then everything else that as the deck starts rolling. Because with Octillery Draw Engine, you'll probably like cycling into your other attackers very quickly. So I just want to kind of highlight the ability of Water to kind of use the Alolan Vulpix to make sure your board gets set up right away. So that's it for this deck profile for my GLC Water Hydro Whale deck, I guess we call it. I kind of pulled out these cards in particular just because they're kind of like the most viable cards of the deck. These being your low energy attackers, this being your boss monster, and then these just being super solid support Pokemon. You'll probably play iterations of Inteleon and Octillery in almost every version of Water just because of how much it ramps the consistency of the deck. And then the remainder of the cards that I kind of put at the bottom here were just kind of highlight the number of switch effect options to kind of get Palafin or Wailord onto the bench. Again, just to make it so they can attack again, or you can attach energies with Icy Dance. So that's the deck profile. If you guys have any thoughts or different cards you would suggest for like a water type deck for GLC, under the same framework, low to the ground attackers. I know there's like a revenge attack deck that my friend likes to play. There's actually very scary, but let me know what they are in the comments down below. Also, a plug to make sure you subscribe to my channel. Like, subscribing does help, and it is interesting that only like 90% of the people that watch the videos are not subscribed. But I think that's probably more towards shorts. But that's it for the video, and as always, guys, thanks for watching.